Halfway into her last term as German Chancellor, if anything, Angela Merkel is sounding more ready than ever to take on more global responsibility.
We have the responsibility to solve the tensions between Russia and Ukraine. Unless Libya is stabilized, the whole region in Africa will become unstable, and that's why this is our task. Europe must leave a footprint, as one might say today, in solving the conflicts in the world.
And that footprint is looking increasingly French as President Emmanuel Macron makes sure he is seen to take a lead in Europe. Meeting Russian President Vladimir Putin, he has pushed Germany out of the diplomatic driving seat over the Ukraine conflict. Macron also took the lead in trying to negotiate a meeting between Iran's President Rouhani and US President Trump. It's less than a year since Germany and France renewed their political vows by signing the Aachen Treaty of Bilateral Cooperation. But in this political marriage, President Macron is increasingly seen as the one wearing the trousers. And the think tanks are beginning to talk.
The Chancellor is making space for Macron without setting her own agenda.
As part of that Aachen Treaty, German and French MPs held their second joint session in Berlin last week. Macron sent his top diplomat for Europe, who found German foreign policy restrained, unlike in France.
We are not used to coalitions. We are in a system where we have more freedom of movement, I would say, more capacity to be agile. In the current situation of the global crisis we see, this is sometimes an advantage.
A French MP who was in the room also sees Merkel's leadership qualities limited by her lack of political space.
We all see how calm she is in the face of adversity, but she isn't free to act as she would like.
Having to share the government benches with the Social Democrat SPD party appears to be keeping Germany from taking more of a European lead. Key Merkel advisors say the demand for German leadership is not being met.
That should be our role. Real politics look slightly different. Not only in this country do we have a coalition, so we always need to find compromises.
The opposition is less diplomatic.
We have a huge lack of leadership and a lack of initiatives coming from Germany. What we see is a government in this country which is done. They are tired.
Stability and compromise have been the hallmark of Merkel's policy architecture for just over 14 years. That formula alone may no longer be working.
I believe that from the outside, Angela Merkel is already being regarded as a kind of lame duck, who has entered the end phase of her term and has little left that she can shape.
Angela Merkel has survived many attempts to declare the end of her political career. But in the autumn of her last term as Chancellor, the woman long seen as the leader of Europe is fast running out of opportunities to demonstrate that leadership.
Let's talk about this more with political correspondent Maximiliane Koschyk joining us now. Good morning to you. Thanks for coming in. You know, just last year, Germany had the initiative on a number of foreign policy fronts on Iran, Ukraine, migration. It doesn't anymore. It lost that initiative. What's happened in Berlin?
Life in the Grand Coalition is what happened. So we've seen the German government that currently consists of Merkel's party, the conservative CDU, her sister party, the Bavarian CSU, and the Social Democrats, having had a long time of forming this government. It was almost a record time of several months until they were able to form this government. And then they were directly thrown into crisis mode over domestic political issues on migration. They couldn't find a coherent line there. And then other topics took over. We've seen that the climate crisis has become a defining topic for voters here in Germany, with the rise of the Greens becoming a stronger party. And that has determined politics in Germany more than foreign policy.
Okay, well, Germany recently hosted to apparently get some kind of new initiative, the first big meeting of the new Alliance for Multilateralism, 50 nations committing themselves to boosting international cooperation. Is this group approach the new face of German foreign policy?
If talking in the terms of how German Chancellor Angela Merkel sees this, probably. She's always been a champion for kind of like solving things in a bigger group. She's always been a champion of multilateralism. And some say that the election of the US President Donald Trump has been one of the motivators to keep her in office, to run for this last term. And yes, so it has been in foreign policy terms that to keep up this multilateral, liberal, democratic world order has been one of her like defining issues in foreign policy.
Okay, will Germany in the autumn of Angela Merkel return to the initiative? Will it gain the initiative again? What can we expect from German foreign policy during the second half of this administration?
Well, especially what is going to be interesting is into looking how Germany is going to position itself within Europe. We've heard that the French President Emmanuel Macron has been taking the lead in how to shape and define foreign policy or policy in general in Europe. And it'll be interesting to see where Germany, and especially the German Chancellor Angela Merkel, is going to position herself. And as we are celebrating, or is to celebrate today, the 70th anniversary of China, especially going to be interesting how Germany is going to position itself in relation to China. It's its most important trading partner. And it's going to be interesting how Germany within Europe is going to find a stance on China's rise to global power.
Okay, now if Germany realigns, let's say, somewhat with China, wouldn't that risk its relationship with the United States?
That is exactly the conundrum Germany is in at the moment. It is the most important trading partner, China, to Germany, but at the same time it needs to think how Europe and Germany within Europe is going to play a role into how the tensions between China and the US are currently happening in the Chinese-US trade war.
Okay, we'll see where all this is headed. Maximiliane Koschyk for us today. Thanks so very much.